funding schemes for universities and colleges so they can explore a new career path. And we are going to we are going to introduce legislation to allow Canada Post to explore public banking options, so the renewable energy projects can be funded in another way, in an additional way, and that's our plan.
So in the NDP, we believe in taking the lead. We are supporting a world charter for nature, and this is something that we are very serious about and that we are going to be pushing on. We are going to meet our commitments under the United Nations Conventions on Biological Diversity. We are going to introduce an environmental Bill of Rights, giving all Canadians the right to a clean and healthy environment. We're going to create a Green Bank of Canada. It's about time that we've had this. This is something that I think we should have had many years ago, but we're finally going to pin this down. We are going to take a look and review pipeline construction for environmental impact. And we're going to, of course, respect local communities in the area as well as the market situation. Now, some people think this is code for saying no pipelines. This is not code for no pipelines. This is taking a serious look at the environmental consequences of the pipelines that are being proposed. And this is something that I believe has been glossed over by previous governments. And we're going to take a laser focus on this and ensure that we do it right. We also support making polluters pay for the damage caused during the natural resource extraction process. A number of terms ago, the Green Party disbanded. And since then, I think it's quite clear that we are the Greens. The NDP is the Green Party in Canada. And I believe that voters agree with that assessment.
Right, thank you. So I think the Libertarian Party, we strongly believe in the threat of man-made climate change. Like we don't want Canada to find itself in a position in 100 years where suddenly the water levels, the temperature has fallen so much, or actually risen so much, and the water levels are high, and we're having flooding and all these natural disasters because the people who are in government in the next few terms didn't properly address this issue. And so that's something that we're going to try and solve now, because we have a huge responsibility to the people who are going to live in Canada, like the next generations. We have to make sure that we don't mess up. And so we really have to try and address this issue right now. Sorry, and anyways, we obviously need to address this issue now. So now, one of the things the Libertarian Party did during the 7th government, I personally wrote a bill that would give tax breaks to companies that would switch off fossil fuels and non-renewable sources into sources like hydroelectricity and more renewable sources. I think, as we all know, fossil fuels are one of the biggest causers of carbon emissions. So I think we need to find solutions like that, solutions that won't harm our economy, but will help transition us into a more green economy. And that's sort of what our environmental policy is based on. And I think that luckily the NDP passed a very similar bill this term. I think theirs was almost identical to ours. They changed a few of the numbers, but we're very glad to see that legislation pass. I think we want to expand it and find more ways to help incentivize creating a green society and a more green economy, but without hurting our economy and without costing jobs. So that's our policy.
Thank you very much for your answer. I'll now open it to open debate. I have put a timer of 10 minutes for the total open debate, so please try to keep your questions and answers short if possible. But you'll still have the 3-minute limit of answering your question.
I'd like to start it off to the NDP representative, Teddy. Do you really believe that Canadians will think that the NDP is the successor to the Green Party when the reality is that the two longest serving Green leaders are now in the Liberal Party? And in fact, I used to be one of those two leaders of the Green Party. I would think that the natural course is to view the Liberal Party as the successor of the old Green Party.
Well, it would be the natural course, except I don't think we've really seen that play out in terms of policy.
Oh, I think we still have a still fairly good green policy. We still care about the environment. We still care about trying to find and funding green energy sources and protecting our waterways and our environment in general, logging as well.
Well, yes, obviously, but these are things that I think we worked on throughout the entire coalition. I think that the Liberals, the NDP, and indeed the Socialists all agree that we do need to do something about the environment, and I'm glad that on this we were able to bring the Liberal Party along.
Bring him along. I would think that the Liberal Party would, from my experience, the Liberal parties took a heads-on approach to all environment policies, so...
How much the carbon tax the Liberals proposing would be? Would it be over $100 per ton?
Pardon me?
So what would be the rate that you will tax carbon? You propose a revenue neutral carbon tax, right?
Carbon tax?
Yeah.
We're planning on changing it to have a federal revenue neutral one. So we'll look at how much.
Yes. So how much do you think it would be?
Oh, how much? We don't necessarily. At that point, it's a bit early to call than say. We have to look into how much it will cost to implement the whole thing and balance it out with how much revenue it can. It would make. It's a fairly complicated matter, and we are looking into it as we speak. And if we are in government, we'll look into it harder, more, and we will implement one though. But it will be revenue neutral though.
So where will you get the revenue for the new energy projects you are proposing?
We'll get the revenue, as I said in the previous question, that we are changing how our tax system works. We have some.
So you will get additional revenue from your tax restructuring?
Yeah, through all sorts of tax, through new, either a new tax that we might implement, or just through a change in how we calculate income tax or corporate tax or the GST and HST. As well as a few other
why do you think carbon tax must be revenue neutral? Because in my view, carbon tax is excellent. It tax consumption, but it only tax harmful consumption in a way. So why don't you reduce regressive GST and increase carbon tax and make carbon tax to really fund its purpose to fund the energy projects?
Carbon tax is problematic for, if it's too high, it actually damages the economy. And the economy is still something we have to keep forward. We have to keep as the number one issue. If we have our carbon tax that's too high, it ends up to inversely damage the fossil fuel markets. And it doesn't, and there is no proper renewable energy source market yet that can pick up the slack. And so a high carbon tax will actually be damaging to the economy instead of actually helping the environment.
Well, if it's not high enough, how would it help the environment? Because, as you know, I hope you agree that climate change is a very serious matter, and it would have a serious long-term cost in the future. So, what if your carbon tax is not high enough?
I agree that climate change is a serious issue, but I am not willing to shoot our economy in the foot to help protect the environment.
But you can, however, invest using additional revenue to actual help instead of you just follow the free market mantra and just use a revenue neutral carbon tax.
If I may direct my question to the Liberal leader, I think we just had a rather, in my mind, stunning exchange as a member of Parliament from Alberta. You just proposed you couldn't answer specific questions about the carbon tax when posed by the representative from the Radical Party. Let me just tell you, in the past year, employment insurance recipients have increased by 57% in Alberta alone, 97,000 men and women who are facing, in fact, the issues of employment and market volatility with oil and energy. For example, retail sales down 5%, housing resales down 20%, employment down 6 or so percent. Occasions left behind by ill-conceived policies and issues beyond our control. So I guess what I'm asking is what many people in Alberta are thinking. And that being, how can you propose such a wide-reaching and impactful policy without even having basic answers like the price of carbon that you're going to put on?
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. We have some research to do, right? We need to look into how this carbon tax would affect the people, and we need to figure out what that number needs to be so that it does not affect people, so that it does not lower or harm the economy. So I think it's proper for me to say that I don't know yet, because we don't have the research yet. Because in the past, we've seen that improper implementation of policy has caused problems to the economy, and we do not want to cause that. When we implement the carbon tax, we want to make sure that it is proper and that it will help the economy and not harm it. And so we want to take all the steps we can, all the research we need, and we will go into and we will look at how it will affect every province. And when we implement the carbon tax, we will make sure that it will not harm any part of the country.
Well, if you are going to let carbon tax actually have effect, you are going to harm the ones that produce too much carbon. Or why do you have a carbon tax if it doesn't harm anyone? It doesn't incentivize anyone to do anything.
The carbon tax is a way to generate a bit more income through, but still, it can still generate income while not necessarily harming businesses.
Well, you are going to
economy.
harm someone. Just
we will, but it would not be to a degree that is generally harmful to the economy. Certain businesses might need to pay a bit more, but they won't necessarily go under, or they won't necessarily start having trouble. The issue, what we have here, is the carbon tax is just a tool, a simple one cog in the whole machine. We have other investment plans to help ensure that these businesses can diversify and to slowly get off of using carbon and whatnot. And so we need to balance that. We need to balance the amount of carbon tax that they pay while also ensuring that they do change to more green renewable energy sources and invest in that.
The question for foreign policy is, Canada's foreign policy can be summarized by one word: engagement. Our delegations actively participate in organizations from NATO to the UN, from Congo to La Francophonie. this global cooperation has